Okay, welcome back to Lab 5. This will be our last mini section. So let's open up Pro. And we're getting ready to export this map. So let's head over to our Layout tab. And for now, let's just leave it at this level. If yours is zoomed in, come up here to Layout and choose full extent, and then you can really see how this will be visualized. Now remember, this is a 2-foot by 2-foot piece of paper, so it will be bigger, but there's some things we need to do to bump up our water bodies a little bit. Before we do that though, you should have your world terrain base, but you know what, just to be sure, select terrain, go all the way down to world hillshade, and let's just remove all of those and remove that world terrain reference. Okay, so what we're going to do now is work with the rivers first. So let's click on our symbol. Okay, we're going to come over to properties, and I gave this a 0.25 outline color. Okay, so you can just type that in there, but let's just not waste time. Let's try a 0.4, and it's going to be the same color. It's going to be this larkspur blue. Okay, and let's just see what happens when we, there we go. Okay, so that's a 0.1, and now the rivers are really well defined and visible. Okay, let's now go down to our playa lakes, and you can see them just scattered up there, but they're so faint, we need to do the same thing. So let's go down to Larkspur. Not sure what happened there. Let me click on this again. Okay, and let's change that outline width to a 0.3. It might be too much. Okay, so far not too bad. Now let's remember, don't go back to gallery. People make that mistake a lot when they're new. You want to return to that primary symbology page. And now let's do reservoirs. So let's format this symbol. And again, we'll choose our larkspur. And let's do a 0.35 on those guys. Okay. Now the swamps and the estuaries. You don't, when you're doing this, I found you don't want to select your symbols over here. It can kind of mess it up. You want to go back to this main symbology page. Okay, and let's click on this swamp, and we'll do a 3.5, and we need to choose that same olive green, medium olive green. Okay, back to the primary, and then let's do the same thing for estuary. We'll pick the olive, and then we'll do the 0.35. Okay, now I want everybody to hold down Control and tap S. And if your project didn't save for whatever reason, just come up here and save it. Okay. Now let's open up our inundation areas, and I don't feel that this color is really working that well. It's far too light. So let's click on that, and we're in this color palette here, and I do want to make it lighter than larkspur. So let's just choose this. Yeah, that's a little bright too. Let's choose this fella. Atlantic blue. Sounds nice. Okay. So far, so good. Now, obviously, we need to define the state of Texas better than we have. And what we're going to do is we are going to use so let's go back to catalog. We're going to use the polygon contours that we created in the last lab because hydrology and terrain, they're just inextricably linked with one another. The terrain dictates how the hydrology flows and goes, but eventually, with enough time, the water will also deeply influence the terrain, going so far as to carve the Grand Canyon, the canyon at Palo Duro. The water will sculpt the terrain, and the terrain will direct the water. So anytime you're doing a hydrology layer map, you always want to take into account the terrain, okay? And in this case, we've symbolized the terrain with contours. Now, I want to save a copy of this here to our geodatabase, and all you have to do is left click and drag it here, and boom, we get a copy right in there, okay? So you're building up this Texas NRM data, and let's give it a little time for that operation. And now we have our poly contours, and we're always going to put our contours at the very bottom of our map, so just drop them down there, okay? I'm going to come up here again to layout, and at this point, this got out of whack, and I was going to do full extent, but let's do this 1:1, and this would be, if we printed out the page, this would be the actual size. Okay, so we can really see what we're working with here. So let's click on these polygons, and let's give it a no fill. Okay, and let's take this down to like a 0.35 and a little bit of a lighter gray color. Now this is beautiful. I mean, you can really see, you can really see how the terrain is channeling the hydrography. These are called draws. Whenever you see these contour lines that uniformly point uphill, what's going on in here is there's a valley being formed by this water, and they call that a draw, and it's all just flowing down to the Gulf. Now this would be and then you can see, you know, your reservoirs have been placed in these lower lying areas. Okay, you can see the water slipping over the higher elevations. See, this reservoir is just perfectly nestled in these contours. Of course, a lot of that shaping may have been done by the Corps of Engineers, or maybe that's just the way that flooded out in the past over so many thousands of years. But this is a great way to study your hydrology features, okay? Now, one thing we didn't do, and we can, but so I just want you to be aware of it. There are tools to eliminate all of these tiny water bodies that could be distracting, okay, to you. All right, so let's pull back out to this level, all right? Okay, so let's add our finishing touches here. What we're going to do is go to catalog, and let's go to the portal, okay, the portal tab, and then over to Living Atlas, and type in this terrain hillshade, okay? And I I don't know why it doesn't pop up on the top, even when I put to sort alphabetically. So come down here and you'll see it, and then hold down your left mouse button and place it on the bottom of your map, okay, and give it a little time to generate. Okay, now the other base layer that we're going to get, so that these two base layers can work well together, we're going to blend them together. We want to get the, let's clear that. Let's come here to categories and let's go to environment. And we want to choose this elevation and bathymetry. Let's see what they have here for us. Now, there's so much stuff in here, and there's supposed to be a way where you can sort it based on where your map is located. See here, location, or actually map extent. So let's use the map extent of hydrology, and then it's supposed to filter it based on the data sets that impact this area of the world. Okay. So what we want, we got our terrain hill shade. Now we want a tinted hill shade. And let's grab this topo bathymetry. Okay, remember, bathymetry is the elevation below the water. So if we did talk a little bit about this before, but scientists don't measure the top of a water body. They measure the basin in which it sits, okay? And that's called, those measurements are called bathymetry. Okay, so if we turn off our hill shade, we're gonna see we have this nice, actually that looks really good just the way it is. I'm not sure we need to mess with it too much. What I was going to do, why don't we do this together and see how it works. We can right click on this and go to symbology, and then click on our color scheme and just format the one we have. And let's click on this pure white stopper, and we're gonna change that to 100% transparent. Okay, so now we're only gonna see the darks, and then but you're gonna see it kind of muddies out, and that's not really what we're after. So I want to use a blend mode. With that layer selected, come up to image service layer, and let's try multiply. Okay, let's leave that alone for now. Okay, now let's come back to our catalog, and we're gonna look for world terrain. Let's choose this world, this world hill shade here. Oh shoot. Okay, hold on. Okay, so if that ever happens to you, just click, the application will close itself. Basically, it crashed. And then just go back and open your project again. Okay, and make sure your OneDrive is still paused from the syncing. Okay, now this is what I wanted to show you. If this happens, it will tell you the backup is newer than the saved project. And so what they're telling you is, hey, we back your work up whether you hit save or not. every couple minutes, okay? And that backup is newer than the last time you hit save. So would you like to recover your work from the backup? And most definitely. So let's do that. Okay, and look at that. It was able to recover all the work that I did. Okay, so I'm gonna simplify this map. There's stuff we don't need. Let's right click on the terrain. Let's remove it. Okay, let's turn on the boundaries. Okay, and let's just put the county boundaries on. Okay, and let's lighten that color a bit. There's actually a county boundary. Yeah, we're not going to use that. Let's go to this dashed effect. Okay, and then let's go to properties and let's make this a 0.7, and let's change this to like a darker gray. Okay, so it's just not overwhelming. Okay, now let's zip up our boundaries. Let's zip up the topobathymetry. Okay, Texas contours. Okay, we're going to work with those in a second. Now, let's put all of our hydrology in a group. Okay, so select all of those, right click and choose group, and then just call this Hydrology. Okay, good. Now, do a Control S. Gonna save our work, and we're almost done here, guys. I know it's been a long lab. And the last thing I want to do is we have to label a lot of this, okay? But don't worry, I've got a cool way we're gonna handle this. Okay, so go back to your map, and this way you'll have this map tab, and this will allow you to add a base map. We don't even have a base map right now. And what we're gonna choose is this terrain with labels. So just click on that, and you have this handy reference layer at the top. And so all of our important rivers, this aquifer, and our big cities are labeled. Okay, so let's come back here. Okay, and that's gonna look good at our scale. Okay, when if you print this out to full size. Okay, now I think the counties are getting in the way of the contours. Okay, at this point you just want to lean back in your chair. Okay, and this is really important because you can work so hard on a project like this, and then after it's all printed and hung, you're like, oh my gosh, why didn't I do this? It's so obvious. Well, it's because you might be staring at one little part of your map, and at the end, it's important that you take in the entire canvas, okay? And then make sure nothing's missing. Okay, so let's finish this up by putting our credits on here. Okay, so they're locked. So I'm gonna unlock those, select them. Come on, guys. I think it's the screen recording, so I'm not gonna waste your time. Just stretch them out, and I'll do the same when I stop recording. Now, the other thing you always need to have when you print a map is you have to have a scale on it, okay? So we're in layout space, so let's go to insert, and we're gonna do this dynamically. So come here and just choose your reference scale. Okay, and I want you to line that up real nice with your credits, okay? And that looks good. Now, the other thing I want to do is for our hydrology. Select that group, come up here, and let's change the blend mode for all of them to, because they're just kind of dark. Let's see what overlay looks like. That might make them disappear. It's still redrawing. Okay, so here's what's going to look good. Select your hydrology layer and go to group and change the layer blend mode to multiply. Now, if you had already hit overlay, these guys might still be in overlay blend mode. So hold down shift and select all of them. And this might say like multiple values. So you could just come up here and choose multiply. And then see what that does is it blends these layers in a real beautiful way where they can kind of like melt into each other almost. You know, it really looks like the hydrology, you know, belongs there. Okay, now for the poly contours, make that a multiply as well. We're going to turn off the boundaries. Okay, let's see if this helps at all. Hold down your left mouse button and drag and drop world terrain. Yeah, see, it gives it some ruggedness. Now with that selected, come back up here and under vector tile layer, let's do a multiply again. Now see, it's still drawing, but you can see we're really defining our map now, and I think this is really going to be looking good. Okay, and then for the reference, let's click on that and let's choose multiply as well. Okay, good. Okay, so make sure everything looks good to you, okay? And that all of this is correct. Like I said, I just needed, there we go. So then I would just move these guys down a little and line them up, and then let's export this together. Okay, so you would come up to share, export layout, okay, and you can start with any one of these if it forces you to pick one. So let's just choose this default AIX, okay, and you need to change this to PDF. Okay, now make sure it's going to your exports folder. Okay, so if it takes you to the root of your project, this is our root folder. Click on that and then double click on exports, and it's already named hydrology, so click OK. And you don't want to remove the layout background. And we do want to output it as an image. Now that image will be inside a PDF envelope, okay? Choose the LZW compression, compress vector at 300 is all good, and then make sure all of this is turned off, okay? Then just hit export. And I will look forward to seeing these maps and your notes on Blackboard.